Well, to get a bit more analysis on all of this, let's bring in France 24's Doug Herbert. Doug, one really key point for the French president last night, and again for the prime minister, was a stepped-up vaccination campaign that would help France, they say, to begin reopening by as early as mid-May. Is that optimism justified?
First of all, Jeannie, yeah, I'm glad you used the word would, because listen, only time will tell whether it's justified. But look at the numbers here. Right now, France obviously isn't alone in instituting these new restrictions, tougher measures. We have seen a wave of new lockdowns across the European continent as this new sort of deadly variant of the virus, really the British variant right now being the dominant one here in France and in a lot of other European countries, as it's really struck hard and driven up the number of cases. And now, also younger and younger people ending up in those intensive care wards that we just heard the prime minister talking about. Look, justified or not, let's look at the sheer numbers. France's population is just over 67 million, according to official statistics. By the end of the summer, we're being told by the official French health agency that France should be in the possession of just over 72 million vaccines. So logic says that's more than the population of France. So in theory, at least, by the end of the summer, there will be more vaccines than people in France. Now, obviously, the numbers can be basically belied by the reality here, because distribution has been a problem. Vaccine skepticism has been a problem, actually getting people to get those jabs in their arms. But officially right now, what Emmanuel Macron is banking on, and the reason he has once again avoided a very strict lockdown, yes, taking some tougher measures, applying it to all of France, but not going into a full sort of lockdown of the kind we saw April last year, is this because he thinks these vaccines are going to ramp up, accelerate fast enough in the next weeks and months to outpace the ability of this vaccine, of the virus, to mutate into new types of the virus, into new variants that defy the best efforts of the vaccinations. So by the middle of May, we're looking at perhaps 10 million vaccinations out there. By the middle of June, perhaps 20 million or more vaccinations. And by the end of the summer, perhaps, we're going to have universal access, at least if things go and deliveries go as planned, to the vaccines. What's significant here is in the early going, France has relied very heavily on the AstraZeneca vaccine. We've seen a lot of missteps and supply hiccups with AstraZeneca. It's slated to become the second vaccine only after Pfizer. Pfizer is going to perhaps by the end of the summer be supplying about 41 million doses. AstraZeneca will be next. Then we'll have coming online the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine set to arrive in France later this month. And finally Moderna as well. Less of that type of vaccine, but they're all coming online. They're coming on quickly. More production at more sites, more coordination. That is Macron's hope here in France.
Doug, over the past few months, President Macron has come under a lot of fire, particularly from doctors and scientists. There was that op-ed just a while back from many doctors saying that the emergency rooms were at a breaking point. Is this a real concession, finally, to them?
Well, it's an Emmanuel Macron-style concession because, look, Emmanuel Macron really has been famous for not coming out with a sort of personal mea culpa to the French. Hey, sorry, guys. Yes, I'm at the helm here. I screwed this up, and I ultimately have to, the buck stops here. I have to take the blame. He hasn't said anything like that. And perhaps you could argue it's really not solely his fault because this is a European rollout. France is dependent on, can only be as efficient in a sense as the purchasing and production of the rest of Europe and Brussels decisions. However, that said, Macron, he said last night that he came before the French with a mixture of humility and determination. I saw more determination than humility in his words. He has said before, earlier this month, that he had no regrets about his decision that you were just talking about to not lock down France in late January against the urgings of doctors and scientists and to instead let things remain open. He said that every day out of lockdown was basically sort of, a blessing to France, was a gift to France. So he has no regrets about that. But the reality is Were there concessions? Of course there were. Locking down schools for 3 weeks is a concession. Applying these tougher restrictions to all of France, not just 19 departments, as has been the case until now, that's a concession as well. Has Macron eaten humble pie? Yeah, a little bit in his own way. He's proven, in a sense, no match, like other European leaders, for this very deadly variant of the virus, which has been outpacing the sluggish vaccine rollout. So he's made some concessions, but he's done it in a very Macronian way, keeping things open with this so-called outdoor confinement. He doesn't use the word confinement, slowing things down while they ramp up the vaccinations.
Doug, thanks for that. France 24's Doug Herbert.